What's going on? Welcome back to Off the Schneid. Today we're taking a look at the Cleveland Browns heading into the 2022 NFL Draft. They had a pretty big offseason, the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, free agency is kind of wrapping up. It was a big trade that I'm obviously talking about. Everybody knows what I'm talking about when I, bring up Deshaun Watson. 3 first-round picks head to the Houston Texans. So looking at the draft capital up here, obviously there's no first-round pick for the Browns, and they won't have one for the next 3 years. So hopefully it's worth it, but we'll explore that in a second here. So we got the team needs up there. We'll go through it. Like I said, free agency is pretty much wrapping up, except for this team did add Ronnie Harrison came back on a 1-year deal that just got announced today. So my graphics are a little bit old, but I'll get there when we get to the defensive side of the football. So let's kick it off, starting off at quarterback like we always do, Deshaun Watson. I'm not here to really talk about the off-field stuff, the political side of this whole, situation with Deshaun Watson. I'll say this, I'm a big believer in where there's smoke, there's fire. So I don't know what's going on. It's a lot of allegations. I'm not going to speculate like I know any better. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a law guy. I know nothing of that sort of thing. I'm just a, sports meathead that talks about nonsense on the internet. So here we are, and Deshaun Watson is a member of the Cleveland Browns. I will say that I absolutely expect him to be suspended in some capacity. Obviously, the Cleveland Browns expected as well with that $1 million for the first year of the contract being guaranteed. It's a fully guaranteed contract, which is interesting as well. But regardless, Deshaun Watson is on this team. Whether he plays quarterback for the Browns this season remains to be seen. Obviously, like I said, the Browns do kind of expect some sort of suspension. I think it's possible that he doesn't play at all in 2022, which is why they gave him that $1 million. I think that they have a pretty, reasonable feeling that he might not play either. So there it is. I think it's an absolute minimum of 4 games. I think it's very, very possible he doesn't play football in 2022. So then that will be 2 years removed from playing football. We'll see what happens. He's still Deshaun Watson, so yeah, we'll leave it there. Obviously, like I said, they expect him to miss some games, bringing in Jacoby Brissett. I think Jacoby Brissett is a fantastic backup. I don't think he's, really a starting quarterback in the NFL, but he's a good, stopgap type of a guy. He can get the job done, and I think he could do just as well as Baker Mayfield did last year. I'm not dogging on Baker Mayfield with that. He was obviously hurt for pretty much the entire season, and probably should have just, sat out and just not played. That bad tape really hurt him. As we're seeing right now, they're having a hard time finding a dance partner and a trade partner for Baker Mayfield. I do fully expect him to be traded before the season starts and to be on another team, whether he's a starter or not there. I don't know. I do think Baker Mayfield is a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, and there's some teams that could use him. So we'll see where he lands. I do not expect him to be a part of the Cleveland Browns. I just don't think they're going to spend that money on him. So we'll see how it all shakes out. It should be interesting, but there's your little breakdown of the quarterback situation with the Cleveland Browns. Moving on to the running back position. Obviously, Nick Chubb is still there, 1,200 yards, I think, roughly last year. Very good running back. And then they have Kareem Hunt, who catches passes, does a lot of the same things. There's some talks that he's going to get just cut by this team. I really don't see why. I don't. There's no way I cut Kareem Hunt from my team and or trade him or anything like that. They can cut him for cheap and save money, but while they got a guy like Baker Mayfield taking up salary cap, I don't see them cutting Kareem Hunt, a weapon like Kareem Hunt, anytime soon. And realistically, it just wouldn't make sense anyways. I would much rather have him on my roster than not if I'm the Cleveland Browns, especially with them lacking, with playmakers at times and potential injuries, things like that. So I'm not cutting Kareem Hunt whatsoever. I'm not trading him. I'm absolutely having him play for my team, and then you probably lose him in free agency. D'Ernest Johnson showed out pretty well last year when he got an opportunity. He's a solid number 3, and Demetric Felton as well. I really liked him in the draft. It was a great grab in the 6th round, and he just rounds out that room. So this is a very, very, very quality running back room in Cleveland, as it's been for the past, however many years. Move to the tight end position. They got Johnny Stanton as a fullback. I don't know if he plays too much, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. And off the top of my head, I don't think that he does play a ton. But I think he does get a little bit of work, fairly minimal. I know that CJ Ham got some work with the Vikings when Stefanski was over there. So I think they do have a little bit of fullback work in their offense, but it's not a crazy amount. I like their tight end situation. I really do. I'm a big fan of Harrison Bryant. He was my number one tight end in that year's draft class, 2020. And I was a little shocked when he came here, especially because they had just signed Austin Hooper to that big contract. They have and had David Njoku. They franchise tagged David Njoku. That was a little shocking to me, if I'm being honest. I thought it would be, Hooper and Harrison Bryant, but here we are. I think those are good weapons. And, I've been expecting Harrison Bryant to take a step forward, and I think this is finally the year, because they haven't had those weapons at wide receiver. That people will say that they absolutely did with Odell Beckham Jr., but for whatever reason, he didn't fit well with this team. Juice Landry, I think, was a very, very good player, and I think he still is. Obviously, he's not on this team anymore, and we'll get to that in a second. With Amari Cooper, Peoples-Jones, we'll get to those wide receivers in a second, but again, those tight ends, I think, can absolutely be weapons on this team. So great tight end room, in my opinion. I really like those two guys. They probably will add another in the draft if I had to guess, but I certainly wouldn't use a premium pick, maybe a 6th, 7th round pick, or if they trade back somewhere and accumulate some picks, they might take a tight end. We'll see what happens. Take a look at the offensive line. Jack Conklin, very, very good. Wyatt Teller, very, very good. Joel Bitonio, very, very good. Jedrick Wilson, very, very good. I like Nick Harris. I really liked him in the 2020 draft. I thought he was one of the better centers that season, in that draft, I should say. And I think he takes over. They cut, I believe, J.C. Treader this offseason. Ethan Piosik, I can never say his name right. He comes in as well. I didn't have offensive line as a need on my team needs up here, but I don't know why I didn't. Maybe instead of, I just thought any position would work, but I think it's definitely offensive line, and probably, a swing tackle. Chris Hubbard, he's okay. James Hudson was a 4th round pick last year. Yeah, sure, why not? But realistically, I think they could use some help here, somewhere in the offensive line, maybe a swing tackle, an interior swing guy, regardless, just someone that can play a few different positions on that offensive line. But again, it's not a huge need, maybe a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick. I do feel like the Browns might trade back somewhere and accumulate some capital, and then they might take, like I said, a tight end and an offensive lineman, something like that, but we'll see what happens. Either way, I think they have a very good offensive line, and they're a very good unit, and I think they're set there, to be honest with you, as long as they're all healthy. Move over to the wide receiver position. Jakeem Grant comes in. He'll be their primary punt and kick returner, and probably their slot receiver if everything remains the same. They've got Amari Cooper, who's your outside possession receiver. They've got Donovan Peoples-Jones and Anthony Schwartz that are both your downfield burner type guys. In my opinion, I'm drafting a slot wide receiver. There's a bunch of good ones in this year's draft, and I think with that 2nd, 3rd round selection, or one of those 3rd round selections, they could grab one of those guys, Wan'Dale Robinson, maybe a Sky Moore, something like that, somebody like that can be that slot receiver, possession slot receiver, over the middle of field type of a guy. I don't really think, and we've seen enough of Jakeem Grant in the NFL. He's a good football player, and he's had a job for a lot of years. He's a very good returner, very good special teams guy, and he can chip in, in downfield routes and stuff like that on offense, but he's not an every down guy. And I think they're going to need another wide receiver, which they've needed, since the beginning of time, almost realistically. Amari Cooper's going to help. Donovan Peoples-Jones hopefully takes another step forward. Hopefully Anthony Schwartz does as well, but I still think that they're going to need a guy, and they could trade back from that 2nd round pick and accumulate some capital, get a slot receiver, in my opinion. That's your offense. Alex Van Pelt's still there. Realistically, it's Kevin Stefanski's offense as well. I do like Kevin Stefanski as a head coach. They were 8-9 last year. I picked this team to win the division. They really were out of excuses last year, and now it just seems like they're not going to be that team. We'll see how much Deshaun Watson plays, and that will help this team get to the playoffs and get to where they want to go. But there's no guarantee that he plays this year. So let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Joe Woods is still the defensive coordinator, obviously. If you look at my team needs, they need a massive amount of help on that defensive line. They lost Malik Jackson, Malik McDowell, who was second on this team, I believe, in sacks, Jadeveon Clowney, Tack McKinley, and Ifeadi Odenigbo. They lost all of that from this defensive line. Myles Garrett needs a running mate. He absolutely just needs a guy to be his running mate. And Jadeveon Clowney, Clowney was second on this team in sacks last year. Malik McDowell, I think, was third with 3 or something like that. But either way, he needs a running mate, a consistent running mate. And Chase Winovich is not that guy. He's a career high of 5.5 sacks. He has 9 total starts. He didn't start a single game last year and registered 0 sacks for the Patriots, who obviously kind of just gave up on him. I think that he can be a good rotational guy. I don't mind Curtis Weaver. I liked him in the draft. He's never got a chance to do anything. Hopefully he gets a shot here this year. But they're going to need a guy. And again, with that second round pick, their first selection, I think they're going to have to address that and grab a running mate for Myles Garrett for a long-term option. You can't just keep bringing in guys and hoping somebody lands. And realistically, they're going to have to add somebody after the draft in free agency, bring in some bodies, because it's light. It's very, very light. Tommy Tagai, sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. He was a 4th round pick last year. I do like Jordan Elliott quite a bit. Taven Bryan, again, I really like him as well. He was touted as a 1st round prospect in his draft season. I think he ended up being like a 5th round pick. I think it was a heart issue or something like that, or that might be Maurice Hurst I'm thinking about. But either way, I don't mind Taven Bryan at all. He's a solid guy to bring in, but they're going to need some help there as well. It's just they don't have the draft capital to address this defense, so I do see them struggling a little bit on the defensive side of the ball as they did last year. Moving back, linebackers are in a very good spot, actually. I really like this is the strength, as well as hopefully corner, but we'll get there in a second. But this is the strength of the defense is linebacker. JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, was, I think, second on this team in tackles and played very, very well as a rookie, I thought. And I think that, with his coverage skills, he's definitely a guy. Anthony Walker led this team in tackles. I really like him. Jacob Phillips, I know they really like. Taki, 3rd round pick a couple years ago, I know they like. Tony Fields is not bad at all. They got a good unit here at linebacker. So they're set there, no need whatsoever. I don't think they address it at all in the draft. Moving back to the corners, Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Greedy Williams, all high draft picks, and they will all play a role in this team. Troy Hill came over from the Rams along with John Johnson III. They're both playing prominent roles in the backfield for this team. I think they're okay at corner. It's not a pressing need, but I think they could add a guy late in the draft. I'm not really concerned. They've got those 4 guys that are all quality and they can all play. And then their safeties are in a good spot as well, with Ronnie Harrison coming back on that 1-year deal. Grant Delpit's still there as well. LeCount. I can never say his name properly, but he's still there, 5th round pick last year. And then, as I said, John Johnson III. So realistically, it's a decent defense, with the exception of their defensive line and getting after the quarterback, which is, I've been saying it for years. That's how you win in the NFL right now. Protect your quarterback. They have a good unit to do that, and get after the opponents. They do not have a good unit to do that, with the exception of obviously Myles Garrett, who's one of the best in the game. So there you go. They're going to have to address that defensive line. Capital is going to be an issue. They're going to have to trade. I feel like they're going to have to trade back and accumulate some more picks. If they can get 2 third-round picks for that second, and then have 4 third-round picks with the 4th, I think you got to pull that trigger and just take some shots, throw some darts at the defensive line, and plug in those holes as you can. But But we'll see what happens. You know, we'll see who's there at 44 for them. They should be able to, if they can get one quality defensive end that can get after the quarterback and be Myles Garrett's running mate for the next 5 years, 4 years at least, then I think that they should do that at 44. But we'll see how it shakes out. So there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments. There's your breakdown and your draft prep for the 2022 Cleveland Browns.